she was she was at her wit's end and feeling like she was getting to a point in her life where she'd been there, done that, and she didn't need to be putting up what she was putting up with. I'm live recording our newest episode of Awful Okay Awesome with my amazing guest, Heather Cherry, who I love dearly. And this wouldn't be possible, though, without our awesome sponsors at Black Oswald Coffee. It is the one coffee blend that's not only delicious, but with every grain, every ounce, every sip, it goes to benefit those experiencing mental health issues. And you can either go to blackoswaldcoffeeco.com, use the code awesome15 to just buy your favorite blend that you see online that looks delicious to you, or you can actually partner with them with your nonprofit that benefits those experiencing mental health issues and start your own fundraiser with them. So without further ado, Heather, I just want you to introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and then we'll just kind of go right into your story and have the conversation live with everyone here.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. So hello, everyone. I'm Heather Cherry. I am a freelance writer. I focus on health and wellness content. I work with a lot of different brands in a lot of different capacities. So anything from content writing to copywriting to, editing ebooks. I've just always kind of immersed myself in all things content. So, and I don't exclusively work with health and wellness brands, but that is my passion. So that's where I've been hanging out in the last couple of years.
It's just so interesting to me because I now know that that's your passion. And there were times when I was running my marketing agency that worked specifically with health and wellness brands, and we could have used more writers. But everything happens as it should. And I feel like that's kinsman or whatever you want to call it right there, serendipitous right there, that I feel like we'll work together with that in some capacity in the future coming up. But as I mentioned, this show is about stories of trials and tribulations turns into passion and purpose. Actually, I didn't mention that yet in this episode, but that's what this show is about. So, Heather, I just want you to tell your story, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, sounds good. So my story is so like all over the place. So I hope you can follow along, right? But so it really just started, I always had this like passion for health and wellness, right? And I was going to go into it. I was going to study it in college, and it just didn't work out. So I was like, I'm going to go this creative route. And then I graduated with that degree, didn't work out. So I jumped into freelance writing. And it was always kind of something that I had done, like in and out, like maybe it's a little hobby, or I'd be like, well, I kind of want to like try this. I didn't really have that definitive path, but I would just kind of took opportunities that came before me. So I'm always a big, I'm not always, I am an opportunist, right? So if something kind of presents itself, I try to say yes to that if it makes sense. So always kind of doing that, just a little bit of everything, became the jack of all trades, was doing marketing, doing writing. I was a journalist at one point. And it really got to a point where, if I found a full-time job, I would take it, like if it worked for me and my family. And I was in this decent job, right? Like it wasn't a terrible job, but I left that job, full-time job, for another one that I thought was going to be like this great opportunity. The hiring person, she promised me all the things, right? Like the flexibility, the pay, the opportunity. And I was just ecstatic. I thought I had got to a point, like I really understood where I was going next. It was a little bit different than what I had always been doing, but it really embraced with kind of what I wanted to be doing. So I was like, yes, right. I took this great opportunity. Well, just a couple of days into that job, it was just an absolute nightmare, right? Like it just didn't feel right. I would walk into that place every day and I would just be dreading it. And I just kept telling myself, well, this is just new, it's a new atmosphere, new people. But it wasn't a good vibe. But, I always believed in, let's give it a chance. You don't want to quit something until you have something else, right? Like that was what I was taught growing up. So I stuck with it, but it just kept getting worse and worse. Each and every day, it was just absolute. It was just, and I've been through a lot of terrible things in my life, but it just felt like so, I don't know what the word is, prohibiting, I guess. You felt obligated to be there, but it was just, and I'm sure so many people can relate to that, like who wants to be in this job that you just absolutely hate? but it just kind of kept building upon itself. And I was promised this flexibility, and at the time my son was in elementary school, so that was really important to me, to be there for his events, the classroom parties. And when those kind of came up and it was time to have that flexibility, take advantage of that, it became an issue. And then that issue kind of transpired into other things, and then I had gotten sick one day, and it was kind of like, well, why are you leaving? And I was like, well, I'm sick. So it was just a lot of things. But I got to a point where she just said to me, like, she started timing my bathroom breaks. And I was like,
Oh
what in
my
the,
gosh.
yeah, what in the world is happening? And I think I was about 30 years old at the time. Like, I think I can, I am a grown adult. My son was, I think, 9 at the time. So I'm like, I've raised a child, through 9 years of life. Like, I've been through a lot of other things in my life. Like, I think I can handle, going to the bathroom and coming back. So I said, this is just, I've had enough. And I just like quit on the spot and said, I'm going to go all in my freelance writing business, because I thought to myself, like, I wasn't making a ton of money. It felt like it at the time, but it was like, I had an idea, like, I could just replace this. Like, what if I just said, you have to go find this money and do it? And that's what I did.
That's amazing. So what was it for you? It was that breaking point between all the things of not having that flexibility to go to your kids' stuff, the time bathroom breaks. What was the straw that broke the camel's back?
I think it was just that tight oversight. Like, I've always, even in looking back, as a teen, like working, like I love to work. I've always loved to work, and I love doing all kinds of work. But when it's like that, watching over me, micromanaging, it's just like, I just couldn't take it. I felt like I couldn't breathe. And it was like, I just wanted the job to just be like, here's the job, now go do it. And it wasn't like that. So, and I think that, looking back in those moments, I was like, that is why I always loved freelance writing, because that's exactly what that is. It's just, you have that, like, what you need to be done, and then you just figure it out. So yeah.
Yeah.
And I just think it was just that it was like a compression. I don't know what the final straw was. I think it was just like, she just didn't, actually I do know, because it was like all those things kind of kept building upon themselves, but it was this, she never gave me a chance to actually do the work. She would say, like, oh, I want this brochure made, because I was helping her do like marketing stuff too. And so I would make it, and she never really told me what she wanted. And then I just kind of like interpreted what I thought, based on kind of what she said and kind of what I thought it should be. And she's like, no, that's not what I wanted. And then she would leave, come back the next day, and she threw it on my desk and was like, this is what I wanted. And I was like, well, I could have made that if you had a
If you
conversation.
communicated. Yeah.
If you had a
Yeah.
conversation with me, and it just was like, what is this? Like, you didn't even give
Yeah.
chance. You're already
Yeah.
counting me out, and critiquing me for something you didn't even allow me to do. So
My gosh, that is one thing that so many, I would even say, venture to say that a lot of women business leaders, they struggle with, because they want help and they say they're struggling and they want help. But then when they get the help, if it's not an amazing magic ball of sunshine and rainbow right away, they just think, oh, I can't get the help because, it just takes too much effort to get somebody to help me. But meanwhile, it's that communication aspect that's missing, or it's that subconscious feeling that, well, if they can help me, then I'm less than. Right. So they actually don't allow to be helped, because then it proves that myth in their mind that they're less than if they're not doing it all. So they're not even aware of it. And that's what I find the biggest struggle to be whenever I'm even coaching women business leaders, is that they just don't allow themselves to let go, and they don't even recognize it when it's happening. So what I like to also talk a lot about, how do you know when you're making the right decision, right? So when you went to make that decision, how did that feel for you in your body? What was your reaction emotionally? Tell me a little bit more about that.
yeah, it was just like, I just knew, like, I knew, like, this is, what do I have left to lose, right? Like, my body just felt like go mode. It was like, why am I doing this? Why am I sacrificing so much? I've always the moment I found out I was pregnant, I knew that I wanted to be there for my son. Like I wanted to go to the parties. I wanted to be able to take him to school, pick him up if he needed, like stay home when he was sick. So it was like that, almost like that piece, that mother bear came out. Like this is non-negotiable. I just knew it's just like a total feeling and determination that I was going to make it work.
Yeah, and that's how and that's a financial decision that you were making, right? And I find that that's a big key whenever you're making that financial decision. If it feels like there's some unknown, but it feels exciting, then likely you're making the right decision. And you also had somewhat of a plan in place. You knew you had some income with your freelance writing, and the decision didn't set you into like, oh my gosh, now I can't sleep. I have that sense of anxiety that totally takes over my body. My nervous system is shot. So that's typically when you're getting those kinds of reactions, that's usually a tell that maybe just play it safe a little bit longer until you can do that mindset shift, or maybe take some time by yourself to make sure that you do have a plan in place to show your brain that it is safe to make that financial decision. What do you think about that, Heather?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. And I didn't always like think ahead. I just like when something felt right, I just jumped in and did it because
Yeah.
that's kind of always who I've been.
Yeah.
That's not always the same. Like my husband was he was like, "What are you doing?" But I was like,
Yeah.
"I'm gonna figure it out," and I did. So I was like,
You did.
I don't think he was a little like uneasy with it because it was a big step, and it's just betting on yourself. Really, it was very scary. I'm not gonna say I was like free of the scares, but it was just like I had that goal in mind and I was like, I have an idea how I can do it. And then it just, all these other ideas kept spiraling. Like there's a lot of ways to make money. And I just,
Yes, I love that you said that. There's a lot of ways to make money. There's a lot of ways to make money. And I just want everybody who's listening to maybe adopt that as one of your mantras for the day. If it ever comes up for you, because, as being a financial rep, I talk about money a lot. If it ever comes up for you that it feels like there's a lack, just remember the mantra that Heather just said. There's so many different ways that you can make money and that money can come to you. And money is a replenishable resource, and it is constantly replenishing. And it's not like it's a pot and once you're at the bottom of it, you're done. That pot just constantly replenishes itself. It's just a matter of feeling into the rate of it, because I know that I personally made some big risks in life and I'm still paying for some of them, but I'm okay, right? And so even whenever you feel like you've made a financial mistake, like you took a big risk and you fell on your face like I have, you're still okay. You're still alive. You'll still get back up. And then that gets to be the story that you tell to inspire others of how you've gotten through it. What are your thoughts on that, Heather?
that's so true. I love how you said the rate of it because that is exactly it. It doesn't, well, not never, it doesn't always come as fast as we want it, right? So
Right. Right. It's always in his own divine path. And sometimes it does come fast. I've had, even just in the past week alone, I always get curious of, I'd love to have a little bit of extra to do this week. I wonder where it's going to come from. I know that so many people are so quick to say, I can't afford it. It's not in the budget. It's not, but rather if you want to make that change to, I wonder how that's going to happen for me because I want it. And so it's going to happen for me. So I wonder how that's going to come up. And it typically always comes in the most magical ways. Have there been other times in your life, Heather, that you were kind of at a decision point and it was either a turn right or left? And do you have any times when you feel like maybe you went the wrong way with it, but then it still turned out okay?
so many. Every day for the last like 15 years, right?
But it's that, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's not really business related, but we had a second son. So a healthy pregnancy. I went into labor like I did with my first son. And, then things didn't happen as expected. And I decided to tie my tubes at the time of delivery, because at the time I was like this, I'm like, there's no way I could go in for a second surgery. And I was really adamant. We had the two boys that we had really hoped for. They seemed to be healthy and strong. So I was like, yes, let's do it. And there was no changing my mind, right? Like my pregnancy was great. But then he was born with one underdeveloped lung, and he only lived 9 days. So then it was like coming back, living with that regret, like what, all the things that kind of come with that. Um, and it was just like, yeah, I regret it every day. Like, why did I decide to do that? But that really, it taught me, going through that taught me a lot. And I think it gave me the courage, to test other things, because once you walk through something like that, you're like, well, I am still
That's
here.
where you
Right.
walk.
Yeah. So, and overcoming that was just, well, it wasn't really overcoming it, learning to live with that, I think, because, that decision, I made that decision in the moment with the information that I had. It's not like and I think that kind of applies
Exactly.
to a lot of the, we can look back and be like, well, I should have done this, I should have done that. But really, if you could have, you would have, right? Like if I
Right.
if I could go back and make different decisions, I absolutely would, but I can't. So it's just kind of learning, you did the best you could with what you had in that moment. And now you just have to kind of take that next step forward, I think.
Yeah. And thank
Yeah.
you for sharing that with me because I had no idea. And thanks for sharing that with everyone because I would argue that that is the most difficult thing that could ever happen to a person. And you hit the nail on the head when you say I did what I could at the time, and if I could have, I would have. And so it seems to me like in that moment you had such conviction within your body. So how could that decision have been wrong, right?
Right.
And you and I have a book coming up, right? That I share a similar regret, but at the same time, just like you said, I made the decisions that I made based on the information that I had, and it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was your son's name? Do you mind sharing?
Yeah. No, totally. Grady James.
What was he? What was he like in those 9 days?
Yeah. He was adorable. He looked just like his dad. So dark
Yeah.
skin, dark hair. He totally opposite of his brother. Yeah, we didn't really, I mean, I got to know him, but I didn't, because he was in the NICU, and it was a very like, very
Right.
critical condition. But I imagined he would have been a Spitfire. So it's, he gave me a run for my money. So
Yeah.
my other son is very much, he's like a little stubborn, but he's very amicable and just kind of like, that it's more
Chill.
sensitive. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
that Rudy would have been the wild child, like just, reckless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said that you learned some lessons through this. Can you care to share any of the lessons that you feel that came through this experience?
Yes. Oh my gosh, so many. So like I said, like just learning to live with the choices that we make, right? Like just kind of trying to understand them and really accepting the fact, we make them with what we have in the moment, and just, taking that next step forward. And I think that the biggest the best way that I overcame that was really just understanding, like, sometimes it's just moment to moment, we're not going to be like our best person every single day and every single minute of that day, especially when we have those things that are just weighing on us and we're trying to walk through them and overcome them. So, and I think it was like minute by minute, and giving myself that grace. So really learning to give myself grace, and just kind of looking at the bigger picture versus like that moment in time. And I'll never say like I am glad that I walked through that, but I feel like looking back, I'm glad that I could overcome that, right? Because now it just gives me so much more depth for all the other aspects of my life. So,
Mm.
it's like anytime I'm up against something and I'm like, I can't do this, I look back at that and like, you did that, like, right. Like
Mhm.
it makes all the other stuff not easy, but a little more, what's the word? Bearable. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, again, when you've gone through that, I would imagine that anything pales in comparison, right?
Yeah.
Um, And thank you again for sharing that with me. Is that the story that you'll share in the book that we have coming up, Course Corrected, or will you be sharing the first story that you shared with us?
Yeah, I actually share a little bit of both, because it's so, it's interrelated, and I also kind of talk about how embracing all those aspects of ourself really do. I mean, and I think too a part of the reason why I don't always talk about losing my son is I don't want to be defined by that, because
Mhm.
not that's only one piece of me, right? Like, there's so many different pieces of us that we bring together who really make up who we are and what we love. So yeah, so I talk about that a little bit. So, it's I wouldn't be who I am today without that experience. So I do share that. I don't go in depth. I have written about it in other capacities, but my chapter in our book really does kind of, I think the overarching theme is just really embracing all those pieces of who we are and how that makes us unique.
Yeah, it's such a good book. And guys, it's going to be coming out on September 4th.
Yeah.
And we just hope that the people who read it, get just a little bit of light within you, just reading through these stories of difficult moments, and then people who have come out through the other side, and also maybe inspires you to share your own stories too. So, Heather, where can people find you, and how do you love to help people with your gift?
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm also on Facebook, but I don't really post on there. So I'm more active on Instagram and LinkedIn. I also have a website, heathercherry.com. And I can help you if you need content created for your business or brand, if it's health and wellness focused. I love to do research. I read all the studies and interpret them. So really just helping people live their best life in whatever way that means for them. So making health and wellness really accessible.
Just want to give one more mention. Speaking of health and wellness, mental health is such a big part of that. And Black Aswad Coffee Company is the one and only coffee company that benefits the mental health industry. I just wanted to give them a little shout out before we continue, because although we are wrapping up, there's actually a question that just popped in my brain that I feel like I want to ask you. What led you to wanting to focus on health and wellness?
Really, and I love that's a good tie-in. The mental health aspect for me, like for sure. So, it started, I was 13 years old and my mom handed me a VHS, which yes, I am that old, but I loved it. I loved how it made me feel. I loved how it got me out of my body. All those times when we're angry or anxious, we just get it out in our bodies. It's amazing what it can do for you. And I've just embraced, all the aspects of health and wellness, from eating to how we think, to our environments, everything. So it's incredible when we kind of focus on those things, how our lives can really and truly change. So that's why I love it.
Yeah, me too. And for me, it was actually the story that I share in our book, why I focus on health and wellness, because you're absolutely right. I woke up this morning just kind of feeling off, and then I went and I hit a new gym that I've joined that is a combination of an infrared sauna, and you're doing your workout into the infrared sauna. So you're detoxing your body, infusing yourself with that infrared light, as well as you're working out, right? And of course, I felt a million times better after I did that for myself. So it's huge. Health and wellness is huge for mental health. Well, that's it. I am your host, Marta Saray Greca. I am a financial rep. I help families account for every dollar in your life, so that way you don't have to make the same mistakes that I did in the past and fall flat on your face. And you can have a beautiful financial future for you and your loved ones. And whatever that looks like, whether you're going to make mistakes or not, I'm there by your side to help you through it. And I love to get to meet with families who actually are doing really well financially, and they just needed that confirmation. that, oh wow, yeah, I am on track for retirement and I do have hundreds of thousands of dollars in investments, and I'm grateful that you were able to witness that, and then I'm there cheering them on and seeing how they can do even better. Or for people who have a lot of debt, and I come from a place of I've been there, done that, and I get to just hold a completely non-judgmental space for you and come up with a plan of how you can pay it back quicker, and then what you can do with all that money that you're going to have saved, with all that interest saved. And I just want you guys to look out for that book that Heather and I have together, along with 15 other authors in the book. It's going to be called Course Corrected, and you're all invited to our launch party that will be in person at Treasure House Fashions that night, because we are doing this book as a fundraiser for Treasure House Fashions that helps so many women who are in that stage of life that's the trial and tribulation, and that's no doubt God is going to turn that story around for them. Again, thank you to our sponsor, Black Oswald Coffee Company. Go to blackoswaldcoffeeco.com right now, look through their blends, use the code all caps awesome15 for your special discount, and help benefit those experiencing mental health issues. And if you love the show, please don't forget to hit subscribe and give us a 5-star review on multiple different platforms, whatever platform you're listening to, or if you're watching this in person and can leave us a comment now. That's all. Have a good day, everyone. See you next time.
Bye.